Alrighty, what's up my friends? I wanted to do a bit of a snapshot of the character that I've been playing in hardcore solo self-found over the last few days. I've been a power siphon, trickster, miner. If you're familiar with my content at this point, you're probably familiar with what I'm doing. I've made several build guide videos about this character in one form or another, but in this edition, this rendition of the character, there's a few things that I'm doing differently that I wanted to go over. Firstly, obviously, as I just said, I'm playing in hardcore, and I guess you can actually just see that up here. I'm actually playing in hardcore Necropolis League, not solo self-found, or at least it doesn't say solo self-found, because when I was creating this character, I accidentally didn't tick the solo self-found button. But every instance of me logging into this character has been on stream, except for like a 5-minute period where I was off stream, where unfortunately I did drop a divine. So I dropped a divine off stream. That was the only time that I was playing the character and not streaming it, and of course something impactful happened. But then I went on stream when I got that divine and purchased chromatics with it. The big thing I'm trying to say that I played this character solo self-found up until the point when I had to recolor, I think it was this chess piece, and I ran out of chromatics, at which point I cashed in a divine for chromatics. That's all I did. I haven't done any trading with other players for any of the gear that he's gotten, except for chromatics, which isn't really gear, it's just currency to color gear. And the reason that's relevant is because I think a lot of people are looking for a build like this or something similar to it, where it's like, hey, is this character hardcore viable? Is it hardcore solo self-found viable? Well, can't necessarily say that you can go all the way up to like 2 void stones, 4 void stones yet with it. I'm still pushing. I do plan to continue playing this character today, but is it a 2 watchstone build? Not yet. That remains to be seen, but so far it's been performing quite smoothly. In this video, I wanted to talk about what I'm doing at low investment. So, especially, I guess, particularly in the solo self-found environment that I'm in. Low investment without the ability to trade with other players for this build makes it look a lot different. For starters, obviously, we can't really go int or power stack heavily. We can't even really stack intelligence in a way that's meaningful for our damage. Wired from the future here. I just want to make a slight correction here and say that we actually can completely solve or mostly solve our accuracy issues by grabbing this intelligence is added to accuracy rating with Wand's passive mastery for wand mastery, which we'd grab one of these anyways. We give up the increases and reductions to spell damage, but we don't have Crown of Eyes. We're not really stacking spell damage that much anyways. I recrafted my wand to just have the flat damage. And if we grab this mastery and we run War Banner instead of Dread Banner with the generosity setup, we can actually solve most of our accuracy issues, as you can see. So actually intelligence can be useful from a damage dealing perspective, even on low investment, where you're not crafting a intelligence stacking wand. And even though we are using power siphon, so you're always caring about power charges whenever you're using power siphon. Power siphon is just a skill that, like, you know, I couldn't imagine a version of this skill being played on a character where they're not scaling power charges. It's written right on the tag of the ability that you get a crap ton of scaling with power charges. So of course we're still stacking power charges, but we're not able to get the, like, you know, 11 or even like 12 to 14 that we can get on our other character because we simply don't have access to good gear. We don't have access to uniques that we can just buy from other players for 10C. So like a Crown of Eyes, suddenly a item that I believe has a tier 3 rarity is going to be very difficult for me to obtain in a solo self-found environment. I'm going to turn off my automated skills so we can maybe hear our ears a little bit better. Even just getting a Crown of Eyes, which normally in League, I checked in hardcore trade, is about 10C. Since it's a tier 3 rarity, it's going to be something that we pretty much have to solo self-found farm ourselves. So we're going to be spending a lot of time hitting up Gwenin, looking for Huber's circlets, and just, I guess, like juicing our maps for rarity and really looking for it because, you know, again, we can't just buy it off a player. It's very important on crit builds to get accuracy. It's a very good investment because accuracy is rolled twice for critical strikes. You can't see it right now, but our character is at, crit capped when we have our power charges up, which of course we're generating our power charges right now with charge mines because, again, solo self-found, we don't have Ralakesh's Impatience. So there's a lot of concessions you have to make with the character when you just simply don't have access to the uniques that really drive the core of our damage. And to give you a bit of a pop demonstration, I should have had this loaded up, but here we are. As you can see, I guess do we have our flasks popped? Yeah, we do. So as you can see, we have a decent, like, I guess, EH people, in my opinion, for where we're at, you know, currently. Again, solo self on hardcore, can't stress that enough. We can't just go buy like a replica High Resire and get a crap ton of evasion. You know, we can't just go buy super good jewelry real quick right out of the gate. Actually, our gear isn't too terrible. This ring's kind of poo-poo, but like this ring isn't too bad. It's serviceable for day 4. That's what I'm really trying to emphasize. Like, you know, 2 res, one of them is chaos, decent life roll, some strength on there. That's a good belt, you know. It's got usable other affixes, like even though it's tier 11 max ES, and even though it's only 9 ES, I should bless orb that up. But because that's literally the lowest roll. Even 12, like, yeah, sure, 18, hell yeah, I'm tank gear. Hell yeah. Anyways, gear's nothing special, really. It's just gear that you'd find out on the ground. That's the emphasis. That's the point I'm trying to drive home, is this is nothing special, just gear you'd find on the ground. And I'm going to show you guys a bit of a map showcase. So, you know, we want to brag about the build. We want to also push it to its limits. Let's run a tier 10 right now. I've been running red maps with this character quite comfortably. I think I showed you guys the pop demonstration. From a survivability standpoint, we're looking okay. As I think Sora might say in one of his video games. But let's go ahead and check out Power Siphon, and we'll have like 3 of them up at the same time. We have our flasks popped for whatever that's worth. Let's go to the config. We do have a Lyra. That's something I recommend you do, I guess, for whatever. This is pretty much irrelevant. Put them at like a 20 shock. I'm shocking bosses for 20. I can't think of anything else for our config, but we're at about 500,000 DPS right now. We did have a lightning exposure being provided by a golem, but I decided to swap over to the stone golem config because I like that better. Yeah, so we're sitting about 600,000 DPS with really just like nothing spectacular. I cannot stress, I found all of my gear on the ground in white maps. I don't have my things going. But we're actually like very survivable, in my opinion. And the mapping experience has been quite smooth, which hopefully I don't need to talk too much about. Like, I'm not gonna... Don't let me beat a dead horse, right? Just watch the gameplay and determine for yourself whether or not you like what you're seeing, obviously. Yeah, I'm not a hardcore player. I've never really been a hardcore player, but this build, if it can work for me in hardcore, I would say it's got some merit. Of course, we're not in red maps yet. Like I said, we don't even have our watchstones. So what really has it done? What has it really accomplished? I still have a long ways to go, but I've been enjoying it. It's been performing, is I guess what the kids would say. All right, the build performs. And that's something to be proud of. It's, again, this is nothing special gear. It's just doing this on a 4-link and gear that basically, like, do I even have anything that's giving me damage? I guess my rings are giving me flat lightning for what that's worth. And then my wand is crafted for flat lightning, and then it has the implicit for flat lightning and a crit multi-roll. So I'm trying to think, am I even getting damage off my gear? No. I'm literally just getting survivability off of everything except for my main handed weapon, and my 2 rings have 1 prefix dedicated to damage. Oh, and I have a Eldritch implicit for more damage, but that's it. So the core of this setup, the core of what I have running on the character right now, is 4 gem links, pretty shitty wand, some ring prefixes, and a passive tree that looks something like this. And I got 700,000 DPS off of that. I think that's pretty impressive, and I think that's something that I could use to, well, you're seeing me use it in yellow maps. I've taken this build all the way to low red maps, and I can farm... I'll put it this way, right? The marker for a good League Star character for me is usually, can it farm tier 16 maps? Because if I can get a character up to the point where it can farm tier 16 maps, and especially if it can click altars and have a smooth experience doing so, I know I can make money. And, well, I don't know how much money I can really make off this character right now. I farmed a divine, but it was just a natural divine drop. You're gonna get one of those every once in a while anyways. The game's just gonna pity party you. But can I make some serious bank off playing this character in SSF HC? I guess we'll have to wait and see. This is a funny aspect of the game that I didn't really consider too much when I was making this character, but, and I'm not, again, I guess this kind of exposes that I'm not truly SSF HC, but when I made the 1 trade that this character has made so far, the one of 2 trades that this character has made, the first trade I made was to liquidate the Divine into Chaos Orbs, and then the second trade I made was to liquidate some of my Chaos Orbs into Chromatics. And when I made my first trade of those 2 trades, the liquidation of the Divine Orb to Chaos Orbs, I was very, I guess you could say pleasantly surprised to see that the Divine Orb the tanking of the Divine Orb that has occurred in the softcore version of the Necropolis League has not occurred yet in the hardcore version of the economy yet. So basically, Divine Orb market economy in hardcore is still around 200C for a divine, which I think basically just means that hardcore players aren't rolling T17s, because that's the only thing I can think of that drove up the price of Chaos Orbs and drove down the price of Divine Orbs. I think hardcore players don't fuck with tier 17 maps. I think that's what that means. And so Chaos Orbs are a lot less... Oh shit, am I dead? I haven't really talked too much about, I guess, the point of this video, funnily enough, which is to say that the character is near suppress cap. All right, this is Future Wired here, and I just wanted to give you guys one final update. Made some adjustments to the character, and I think we landed on a pretty good spot. First thing to note, and probably the most controversial thing to note, is I actually ended up taking Heartstopper. I know this node has been kind of traditionally seen as a meme. People don't really like rotating defenses or just things that they can't really rely on, or defensive side of things. People don't really like unreliability. Fact of the matter is, Heartstopper is just an incredibly cheap and efficient way to kind of, I don't want to say solve problems, but I'm clicking it and I'm using it to justify clicking Lethe Shade. And so, you know, when the damage over time portion of Heartstopper's up, I'm basically taking like no damage over time whatsoever from anything. We are shock immune at max power charges, and of course we are not at max power charges all the time because we do not have Ralakesh. And then when the hit portion of the effect is up, as you can see from my config here, I've got quite a respectable health pool. I'll even, I think this is with Immortal Call disabled. No, this is not, to be fair. So unclick Immortal Call, but with the hit portion of Heartstopper active on my character, I feel very tanky. This is not with endurance charges. This doesn't count for enduring cry buff because it just doesn't factor that in. I can click it. You know, there you go. With endurance charges up, and then with Immortal Call up. Without, I mean, you already saw it, but yeah, we're quite a lot tankier when you enable our buffs. But so yeah, that's the first thing to know. Second thing to note is I actually doing this. I guess it'd probably be more accurate to show now if I don't have this buff up, where my character fell to, because I did make an adjustment that hit the character defensively, kind of, which was that I took out Dread Banner and I replaced it with War Banner. So War Banner is it's a banner skill similar to Dread Banner that actually gives your character accuracy for a decent chunk. It's 20%. It's like kind of like, I think, a notable. Basically, I don't even know if it's a notable's worth from a percentage-based value. Yeah, it's about a notable's worth. I guess a notable you can actually get a little bit of flat from. You get a lot of accuracy from specking accuracy on the tree. Yeah, there's 20% and then about 100 accuracy rating. This is not a level 20 War Banner, and actually at level 20, I'm curious to see, it goes up to 21%. The enemies take increased physical damage is like very slightly noticeable because of course we still do some physical damage by virtue of how our wand is rolled, but mostly you're using this for the accuracy, similar to Dread Banner, where Dread Banner does technically give us a chance to impale enemies on a hit. I guess we technically very barely use that, but we're mostly obviously using that for the enemies nearby have less accuracy. Well, that does drop our evade chance to 79%, and something I probably should have shown was that when we get hit by an attack, that's significantly boosting our evasion. If I unclick this, our effective hit pool actually goes up because the way when Dinser works is when you get hit, you have a 20% more attack damage debuff applied to your character for 4 seconds. Or I guess technically it's a buff. You can't get rid of it. But either way, without being hit, our evade chance is actually at 72%. This isn't necessarily super comfortable, but we did make another adjustment to the character, big adjustment to the character. The reason why I unspec'd out of, if I can show you the passive tree, the reason why I unspec'd Escape Artist was actually because I found a Cloak of Flame. And now Cloak of Flame is it's a goated item, one of my favorite items in the game. It's relatively accessible, I guess evidently even in solo self-found, but relatively accessible in Trade League. You can definitely pick this up for like 10 to 15 C at most. It gives you the very powerful 40% of physical damage taken as fire damage affix, which is a damage shift, kind of a damage conversion. It's the damage that you're taking. In this case, if it only applies to the physical damage that we're taking, but it applies to all physical damage that we're taking, not just physical damage from hits. So this definitely applies to bleeds. This definitely applies to corrupted blood. Super nice. It just takes that 40% of that right off the top and it shifts it over to being taken as fire damage instead. So our Fizz max hit goes up quite tremendously just by virtue of having this equipped. I'm going to demonstrate now. If I have this ability, or sorry, if I have this item equipped and I have no other buffs, so I guess I just unclick Immortal Call. You see our Fizz max hit is 7k. This is a big difference, a big boost from the, I guess, 5k to 4k that it was, the 4k that it was previously. So yeah, of course we do have to give up some evasion with that, but in giving that evasion up, and mostly giving that evasion up on a chess piece that I could have rolled for juicy amounts of evasion. You see, Cloak of Flames does take up your chess piece slot, gives you a little bit of energy shield, but mostly it's kind of just like a big damage conversion item, because the energy shield base that it has on it is just the Scholar's Robe, and it doesn't have any, it doesn't even give you like an increased energy shield roll on it or anything. So we're just getting like 53 energy shield, you know, not nothing, and a good chunk of fire resistance. We don't use the ignite duration on enemies at all, and then the reflects 100 fire damage to melee attackers, I think nothing of, but because I'm not playing a reflect build or anything along those lines, this chess piece combined with Heartstopper gives us quite a sizable amount of, like, we don't need to care about a good majority of the fizz hits that are coming in from small enemies now in the game anyways. So even though our evasion took a hit, even though we're not at the like baseline 80% evasion, and then we jump up to like evade cap or like 93% evade chance, like we did previously when we got hit, so even though we're not on that setup anymore, now we kind of move over to like a, hey, we're very frequently evading skill attacks, not every single time, not, you know, we don't have a, and I've talked about this, evasion is definitely something that gets better the more of it you accrue. I am looking to get more accuracy. I am looking to get back to the Dread Banner setup. I am looking to get into, well, getting off of this chess piece eventually. I am looking to get back into Escape Artist. I am looking to scale my evasion more significantly. But for now, this is a nice holdover setup where we kind of have like windows of defense. You know, we have a 40% damage from hits just getting straight up removed, rolling on our character every 5 seconds. That's incredibly powerful. Basically makes us hit immune, as you saw just with that buff up alone. Our character skyrockets in effective health pool, and then we have Lethe Shade to basically not care about dots. You know, for every 5 seconds, every 5 seconds we're gonna not care about dots. Every 5 seconds we're not gonna care about hits. It's gonna be feeling. I think so far I've been mapping with it. It feels pretty cozy. I don't regret this setup. We do have an abundance of resistances now to play with, which means, well, firstly, mapping is going to feel even better because we can't be taken down below our resistance penalty or our resistances, even with things like curses, like elemental weaknesses. I guess if a bunch of curses hit us at once and exposure, then yeah, we'll get brought down. But like not even our fire resistance actually would get brought down in that scenario. But we're overcapped on cold for exposure. We're definitely overcapped on lightning for exposure and for a curse. We're sitting mighty tanky, or we're sitting in a good spot right now, is what I'd say. It's the best way to put it. You know, we of course have our other baseline defenses, like, you know, by virtue of being a trickster, we get one step of, well, not by virtue, but we're taking one step ahead. So just by virtue of being near the mobs, we're slowing them down. We have 93%, or you could say 97%, if you are willing to say we're always on full life for the purposes of Revenge of the Hunted. With respect to our spell suppression, we have about 160 life regen from our Brolum, who is also linked with Meat Shield, so he's occasionally taunting things for us. We have, we're super fast. We actually have like 90% move speed, and you can get another 10% if you're oh so inclined, because now that we're swapping off of our evasion-based chess piece, you can get something like 10% increased move speed if you haven't been taken hit by damage recently. I actually prefer this 40% increased evasion rating if you have been hit recently. It really pairs well with Wind Dancer. We do have 25% chance to block attacks, which isn't nothing, and that's true random, by the way. It's the only source of true random defense in the game, I think, that's still in the game. It doesn't work on an entropy-based system, so it's just another window of defense for the whole, like, hey, something hits us, maybe we just don't even take the hit, and that, of course, applies to attacks only because we don't have spell block. I want to find a way to fit blind into the build efficiently. I know Stibnite Flask would be kind of like the obvious choice, but I want to see if I can't get a better way to fit blind in, because I quite value the base evasion provided by Jade. For early anoints, I do recommend Efficient Explosives. This kind of reads as like 15% more damage with the way that just detonating an additional mine works, or just detonating a mine additional time works. It also does help to self mana. As you can see, we're kind of like 4, because of rounding, 30% 4 mana reservation. We're not even really close to reserving all of our mana, but the idea is that you don't just want to not reserve all your mana, you want to reserve only enough mana to where a Mortal Call can still reliably go off, and then just make sure you have enough mana regen to where you can continually see a Mortal Call going off. You don't necessarily need to have it like that. If you're just standing here casting straight up, I think I eventually will spend all my mana and a Mortal Call is going to stop going off. But that's not a super huge deal for a mapping and you know, especially like bossing context, you're going to be moving around, dodging abilities, especially on hardcore. I did take Alira early, but I'm actually at the point where I'm starting to think about respeccing, just with how often Enduring Cry is up, and on also the fact that we have enough resistances as is, to where if I respec it, I'm not going to dip down lower than where I'm at. The mana regen is kind of like the last thing where I'm wondering, like, do I need that extra 5 mana regen? But that I'm, of course, scaling. It's 5 base, and I'm scaling it with percent mana regen from things like cold-hearted calculation and whatnot. So yeah, I'm trying to work out the mana, but as long as I can work out the mana, I'll just take the extra 2 passive points. We can do more with 2 passive points, especially being Trickster and how we benefit from masteries. So it's not uncommon for my character to be at full HP. I also have Stone Golem, as you see, my little Brolem. He's been alive and kicking it. I actually have him hooked up with a 2-link, or sorry, with a 3-link. He's got Meat Shield and Minion Life support, so he isn't dying very regularly. As you can see, this is a tier 10, and he's just tanking a map boss and basically not losing any HP. Main purpose of him is when equipped with Meat Shield, he actually has like a decent chance to taunt. That's in addition to the base skill that the Stone Golem occasionally fires out, which does trigger a taunt. If you didn't know anything about taunts in PoE, taunts work in a way where, of course, they overwrite the enemy AI and try to make the enemy focus the monster that they're taunted to. But in addition to that, you also take a guaranteed 10% less damage from any source of damage that is actually under the effect of a taunt. So if a map boss is taunted and he hits me with an AoE attack and he's taunted, so he's taunted by my golem, but an AoE attack that he sends out incidentally hits me, I take 10% less damage from that attack. So taunting is really, really good as a defensive layer in this game. You would especially know that if you've ever used Taunt or Decoy Totem. Decoy Totem is the best example, in my opinion, of this thing has Taunt on it, and it's completely broken. It's crazy cracked. If you've ever played a Totem build, very, very brief history about this. Before I started this league, I was testing League Start characters, and I was actually pretty dead set on playing a Hierophant Totem-based build. It's trying to make Ball Lightning Totems work, and what was working with that build of Ball Lightning Totems was actually the Decoy Totem that I had slotted in, where I was running these 2 nodes as well. Totem Life and Physical Damage Reduction, and Totem Life and Elemental Resistance is basically necessary to make your totems live. Basically investing a little bit in totem survivability and grabbing Panopticon, or no, Ironwood down here, and running a Decoy Totem. You can feel incredibly tanky on just about any character, especially characters that are investing into totems. But that's not what this video is about. I ended up taking Wind Dancer despite our evasion not being a cap, even with a flask, and Dread Banner popped. Let me go ahead and check out the pop here real quick. We're going to go into the Calcs tab to get our actual evasion chance. You see, we do have about an 81% chance to evade with the Dread Banner debuff active. Just Dread Banner is giving me about a 5% flat chance to evade. Our defensive layers are basically just evasion, suppression, and our tooltip lies to us on both of those. Our actual suppression chance is closer to 92%. Our actual evasion chance is closer to 82% chance. Dealing with crits is something that evasion-based characters do naturally through getting evasion, because as we discussed earlier, your crit is rolled twice when you are making an attack that could crit. So when you attack an enemy, I think this applies just to attacks, because it applies just to accuracy. When you attack an enemy, your attack is rolled to see if it hits and crits the enemy at the same time. If you crit the enemy, then a secondary accuracy roll is rolled. If that accuracy roll fails, so if you have like a 90% chance to hit something, you roll that 90% chance to hit, that succeeds. Well, what about your crit chance? Roll the crit chance. Okay, the crit chance succeeds. Okay, roll the accuracy again. Then that secondary accuracy check, let's say that fails. Then the first accuracy check still succeeds, obviously. You still hit the enemy, but you don't crit them. Even though you did crit them, you don't actually crit them, because your secondary accuracy roll failed. If you succeed both accuracy checks and succeed the crit roll, then you crit. All I'm really trying to get at here is accuracy is rolled twice for the purposes of crit, and so for crit builds, accuracy is incredibly important. We have 100% crit chance when we have all of our buffs up, including our flask up here for 45% increased crit strike chance, and then obviously our power charges, which is the main source of critical strike chance that we're getting from the build. But other than that, our build, like I said, it's been performing quite well. We're in tier 10s, pushing tier 11, pushing tier 12 maps, still alive, have reasonable defensive layers. that I guess do occasionally have the chance to fail on us. We did. I've been hit by like at least 2 spell hits that I didn't suppress that brought me down pretty low. That had me kind of spooked. But that's kind of the nature of defense, or of evasion, anyways, as a defensive layer, and working on things with an entropy-based system. You know, eventually they're gonna fail. Eventually you're gonna get hit by something big. And I guess the important thing for when that happens is to make sure that you're, you know, relatively full. Actually, it's to make sure that you're full on HP as much as you reasonably can be when your other defensive layers are going to fall through. And so having a decent sustain layer is important, which is why I really valued getting Ghost Dance. I went all the way through here to get Ghost Dance. And I even threw in this Stolen Golem here to try to make sure that we're up at full HP as much of the time. As much of the time as we can be. So anyways, that's the build. Yeah, just again, real quick, want to go over things. We're still alive in hardcore. We're level 88. We're not doing crazy damage. We're, you know, hardcore, mostly solo self-found. We did make 1 trade for chromatic orbs, and I guess to liquidate our chaos orbs, but I haven't done anything else besides that trade-wise. We're solo self-found mostly. We can't really trade with other players. We've achieved a reasonable amount of damage. Right now, for some reason, it says 400,000. I think I fucked with a config. No, we just made it Guardian Pinnacle boss. Against Trash, we have 600,000. Against our bosses, we have 500,000. And I have not fought a Guardian or Pinnacle boss yet, but would have about 400,000 DPS for that. Truly a Z DPS build, but that's okay because, as it turns out in Path of Exile, you really don't need that much damage to go through the majority of the game's content. And today on stream, I do plan to take this character through probably, I've got this Writhing Invitation here, so I probably want to continue progressing through red maps. There's a very good chance I die soon, just because I haven't done this in a long time. I haven't really played a hardcore character. Even actually, I think this is the furthest I've made it on a hardcore character. If I check my achievements, can I check my achievements easily? Eternal. Reach level 90 as a hardcore character. There it is. So Eternal, we have 2 levels until I've gotten that achievement. Be the first time I achieved that achievement. So that'd be pretty cool. And yeah, hopefully I can do that on stream today. You know, we're pretty close to level 89. So, you know, yeah, I would consider this character a success if I could even hit level 90. It's not really too hard to do that. I could just keep farming white maps to do that. But I also want to push the character, so it'd be a success if I could hit level 90, but really it'd be, I think, a success to most people if I could push and get my 2 Watchstones down, and even, especially if I could go and get 4 Watchstones and push even further beyond that. So, okay, one more update. I actually did some progressing, and we are level 90. So the next step, and I guess I don't want to call it the final step because there's so much more to do in Path of Exile's Endgame, but for me, I would definitely consider this character accomplished if it could do its 2 first Void Stones, which are often considered to just be Eater and Exarch. I do have the invitations to their mini bosses right here for the Black Star and the I believe is the Infinite Hunger. So I'm going to be doing those today instead on stream right after this video goes live, and then farming up some red maps. I got a tier 11 and tier 13 right here for the actual full-fledged boss versions, the Eater and Exarch, right? If I can just zoom in on their big old faces. That's actually their face in the background of the Atlas tree, if you can see that. Super cool wallpaper. Unlock it now. I also wanted to say that I have upgraded the character, not super